Queenstown, can you hear us?
Yeah. You're back in.
We're nodding, but we can't hear.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I think
How would you see the best way of us raising funds given the big rate increases we're getting at the moment? How would you see us funding some of these key submissions you've made?
On like water ones, etc.
Yeah, I mean, prioritising actions for water.
Yeah.
Because it's so much of this stuff.
It is, and things like quite a lot of, I've had the privilege of having a look at some of the recommendations out of
On
the
that one, yeah.
Wakatipu, that's all right, out of the Wakatipu Water Forum stuff. And quite a lot of it is actually about information and about joining people up. And I think you know me well enough to know that I'm not a big fan of just talking for the sake of talking, but I think there are some real benefits to come out of sharing information and knowledge with communities so that they can see where they can have the biggest impact for the dollars being spent.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Is there anything further? Anyone over there? No, I don't think so. That's us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for coming in.
No problem at all. It's always a pleasure.
So where are we up to?
We've got Stan Randall.
So you're Stan Randall?
Yep.
Kia ora, I'm Alexa Forbes.
Alexa.
How you doing?
Alexa.
Alexa.
Alexa. Okay.
Alexa. Yeah, I'll just find yours 19H and booklet 2.
Yeah.
Let's get to that. 19H. Let's go back to the beginning to figure out what page number that is.
Right.
It's not a perfect system.
Snake back out, guys. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much, Vanessa.
No problem. Thanks.
I think you understand the drill. Stan, you've got about 6 or 7
Well,
minutes
not
to
quite
speak.
now.
Okay.
Not quite the normal drill, apparently.
No, things have gone a bit wrong, but it's not too bad. We're still able to hear everybody and it's being recorded, so you might need to be aware of that. And we have Gretchen Robertson and Michael Walls online. Not sure what's happening with ORC Dunedin. Are you listening to us or?
yes, we are here. You can't see us, but we can see and hear you. And
Okay.
Councillor Forbes, if the councillors here have questions, I will just type them into the chat bar there, or we'll
Okay.
type up.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Jasmine. Okay, over to you, Stan.
Okay. Well, I've worked it out for your 5-minute slot. So it depends on how fast you want me to go and how critical you're going to be on the 5 minutes. There we go.
Depends if you've got time for questions at the end.
What's that? Oh,
Yeah,
it's pretty succinct.
Yeah.
Okay, what can I say in a few minutes? I was going to make the slightest difference to the proposal to charge 4.6 million, 3.3 million or whatever, to spend on helping you, which is the landowners, to manage the pests. 4.6 million to get the public to start pest eradication management. That's what I understand the document says. A couple of things beforehand. I looked at the biodiversity thing which you mentioned in paragraph 1, and that's under the Ministry of Conservation, which is not pest management. Pest management comes under the Ministry of the Environment, which was set up in 1986. So I'm not sure if you people realise that, or whoever wrote it realises that. Predator-free 2050 is not mentioned, which is the act that has Kerry Allen said was the national process. I'm surprised that that wasn't mentioned, considering it's the national process, which she did before she was ill, presented what said 46 million was going to be spent on the West Coast somewhere. I thought that would be there. The third paragraph says focus on exclusion, eradication, containment. Okay, I think that's out of step with the predator-free 2050. The problem, this is the problem, apart from what I submitted, this is the problem. There's no business plan on the methodology as to how these focuses are to be achieved. how to manage exclusion, what it costs, how the public will be mustered together to eradicate the control, which is going to be in their court. But do the landowners realise that none of the 4.6 million or 3.3, whatever is decided, will actually be spent on the focuses? Do they realise that? Except maybe for site-led community support. If the landowners are responsible for the total pest eradication, control, exclusion, they must all be given some kind of business plan as to how the 4.6 million was going to be spent. I've already contacted Mr. Noon, is it?
No, yeah.
Yeah, I asked him about that early on, about 3 weeks ago, and said, look, I need to look at how the money's going to be spent so I can make a critical comment. He said that would be fine, and unfortunately, nothing's happened. I still don't know. I can't make those kind of what I would like to make constructive comments. Okay. How much of the dollars are they going to have to spend on informing the public on the life cycle, the habits of each pest, what the public have to do, when do they do it, how do they do it, where's the best place to buy traps, what bait to get, where to get it, all those things you're expecting the public, and simply as an educator, I find your simple point about educating in your document is really, really questionable. This is what helping you manage pest means. That's what you're asking people to do. This is what I think. If after 12 months to the next rating cycle, the plan is seen to falter or fail, it will be the landowner's fault. They will have failed to do what they have been charged to do. Further, after 10 years, I assume you repeat the process each year, there'll be some odd $50 million spent on communicating with the public and educating them. The public will have theoretically spent over $50 million on actually doing it. Let's say maybe $100+ million in 10 years that the landowners are going to have to part out, and the consequences will have been achieved. And the thing is, they don't know. They don't know what's involved. And I think it's responsibility of the regional council to inform them. If they're the workers and they're making all the financial commitments, they need to be told. It may well already be done in here, because this is, I accept this is a kind of a Tracy. But when I mean, if you're going to say 4.6 million or 3.3, it means that you've already done some kind of budget. To me, to get such a number. I mean, it's not 4.5, it's not 4.7, it's 4.6. I mean, as a scientist, is that plus or minus 100,000 or 200,000? There's nothing about those kind of things at all. What does the plan consist of? This is what I think, and it's being critical. It's essentially a series of platitudes, which is all true. There's nothing wrong with what they're saying, it's true. But I think they're being used as a kind of a terminating cliche aimed at quelling the landowner's social, emotional, cognitive unease. It's written in a true state, but it really doesn't say anything. There's nothing in there or reference to further down, which one would assume must be in place, to tell the people what they're being committed to. That's why I consider the long-term plan, at least for pest management, has to be revisited, so that landowners who are funding the entire bill to be able to make constructive, informed comment. So that's my view of your helping us manage the pests. The other part of my submission was on the environment, a proposal says an integrated catchment management. And the problem with this section, it is written as if the issues listed in the catchment have just been recognised. For example, community, mana whenua, ORC, government, non-government agencies will collaborate to design and map a roadmap to achieve catchment objectives. The question is this: has nothing been done, learned, worked for the last 27 years? Have they not learned a thing? There's nothing they've actually done over those years in pest management, in those things that they've learned. It's written as if it's just beginning. They've just noticed these things, which to my mind is amazing. I notice also that there's no man-made hazards included in the list. The man-made hazards are identified in my work concern the sedimentation at Alexandra from the 2002 directive or consent for the 30-year, whatever it was, for contact energy to operate. Just,
Here we go.
my time up, is it?
It is,
yeah,
but I've been letting you go.
Oh, okay, well, I'm just about
I'm
there.
interested, but I think it is a good idea to start winding it up before I get in trouble.
Okay. Well, there's no man-made hazards noted, and I think that's important. I don't think you've made enough identification of the natural hazards, particularly the faulting around Dunedin and on the Great Alpine Fault, with all the latest forecasts, up to 80% now. And again, the ratepayers do not actually know exactly what the 25 million is going to be spent on. And some kind of business plan would allow decisions and expectations be made to evaluate as to the continuance, whether you should continue doing what you're doing, whether you should modify it, whether you should abandon it. There's nothing like that at all for the public to read. So those lacking that specific detail is such a general document, to my mind, says nothing.
Thank you very much for your submission. Yes, Hilary, are you able to unmute and talk to us?
Can you hear me?
I certainly can. Please go ahead. And just if somebody could put in the chat box who wants to ask a question, I can come to each of you. Or does Kevin, do you want to take back the chair?
Carry on. You're doing a very good job, and I'm sitting down here.
All right, so go right ahead, Hilary, and let me know who's next.
My question is, the intention is to review the pest management plan to see whether we're achieving what we were hoping to achieve with it. Would it work for you if we did that after, say, a year?
I can't quite, I'm sorry.
Shall we, she's asking, the intention is to review the pest management plan. Do you think it's a good idea to review after a year? I understand you said that we just end up blaming the landowners.
No. I mean, of course you can do that, but I think that the first priority must be the business plan of how you planned in paragraph 3. How are you going to do what you're going to do? How are you actually going to do it? How are you going to actually educate? I'm an educator. I was head of science for many years. I know what it's like. One of the things I used to do with my students would be this. If you understand what you're doing, I would say to them, you explain it to that person. And that is what you are not doing. So, sorry.
Thank you. Anybody else from that end?
Thank you.
Gretchen, Michael?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
I can't hear that. Hilary, can you translate for me, please? Because I can see and hear you.
No one here has any further questions. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. I will thank you very much for your submission. We will take it into our considerations. It might be worthwhile just for people to understand what is behind that document. There's a lot of things, and I actually personally agree with you. Thank you very much. Do you want to leave your notes with me too, so I can go off those for further discussions?
Oh, can you read my notes?
Possibly. I can read your submission. And
You've not read my response?
Yeah, I have. I can read it. I can read it. You've
Page
got some of it
one.
handwritten.
Hey,
I can manage.
This is not my, this is,
I know, I have your submission right
I've
here.
already given my submission. What I
That's
think
right,
that-
and this is some
Page
extra
one.
notes.
Do we need to hand the control back to,
Page
Yeah.
two,
to you guys and you've got somebody on Zoom?
We finished with
Page one,
Okay.
page two, page three, and
I think we've got Googled on Zoom, I believe.
Mr. McTavish?
So Liz, if you're online, can you let them through now from the Zoom waiting room? I can't.
Yeah, go exit full screen up top.
Okay.
Exit full screen, you can get back to.
No, he's not there. No, we were expecting, he was previously on Zoom. Looks like he has gone, so,
Oh, Alison is his wife and she's just joining.
oh, brilliant.
Yeah, so he'll be
Oh,
using it.
there's someone there.
Oh.
Hello, Alison. We have, or Dougal, we have no sound. Oh. Yes. We,
Is that third one now?
yes. Dougal, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful.
Mr. McTavish here today.
All right.
Good. Kevin Malcolm here. Hey, we have allocated for Wise Response 6 to 7 minutes. We'll give you a wee buzz as we get closer, and then we'll leave a couple of minutes for you to be asked some questions by our councillors if appropriate. So you follow on with your submission. We have received it quite late, but it'll be very good for you to enlighten us on it. Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't hear how much time you've given me.
Just drop that back to 7 minutes.
Oh, yeah, righto. Well, good. So I'll fire ahead.
Thank you.
Right. Well, good afternoon, councillors. Thanks very much for having us on. As you know, I'm Dougal McTavish. I'm Secretary of Wise Response, and Professor Liz Slutin is the chair now, and having taken over from Sir Alan Mark, who's just retired. Our submission again focuses on the urgent need to extend your policy from climate change adaptation to climate change mitigation. It's unfortunate that the Society's Deputy Chair, Jim Salinger, couldn't be here with me either to reinforce that because it's focused on his field of work. He's the Deputy Chair of Wise Response. Just to remind you that Wise Response has one legal purpose, which is to encourage governments at all levels to address the question, as demand for growth exceeds Earth's physical limits, causing unprecedented risks, what knowledge and changes do we need to secure New Zealand's future well-being? That's the Society's one purpose. So that means that while this submission is focused on climate change, we see it in the broader context of simply a symptom of unsustainable living arrangements, alongside a lot of other symptoms, in fact, including degrading freshwater quality, biodiversity loss, invasive species, declining coastal marine ecosystems, and so forth. These, of course, are all elements of the environment that Council has the responsibility to manage sustainably. Got a little thing coming up here. The host has asked you to start your video. Start my video. Oh, how do I do that? Can you see me now?
Sure can. Hello.
Yeah, okay, that's good. I'm sorry, I look a bit fuzzy to myself, but I hope I'm clearer to you. So however, the good news is that if we can change our living arrangements sufficiently to address climate change, many of these other unsustainable effects will also be at least partially mitigated. This is why our submission is essentially just to ask you again this year that you extend your climate adaptation policy to develop an active extension program that helps individuals, households, schools, and businesses to start thinking about how they can do their bit towards the government's carbon zero goal. The two big items in our submissions that we can address through submissions are transport and land use. And at the top of our submission, you'll see that we've listed three particular items to stress. We support the inventory development, but want it to extend now to emissions reduction planning. We support a mode shift in low emissions public transport networks throughout the region, and we support a move to your move that you started towards integrated landscape management, but with more emphasis on carbon sequestration and land management, which fits with water holding capacity and all that kind of stuff. And we've given examples in our submission of the urgency of the situation, including the UNEP assessment that global methane must now be sharply reduced if we're to meet the Paris agreements. The other thing is, just this week, you might have noticed that the IEA, International Energy Association, has come out and said that beyond projects already committed as of 2021, there should be no new oil and gas fields approved and no new coal mines or mine extensions if we are to meet the Paris Agreement. So it just underlines the urgency with which we need to address this. And the diagram at the bottom of our submission, I think, is a graphic illustration of where we've got to go quickly. And we think that the only way we can stabilise the climate is by supporting each other's initiatives. So we want to see the ORC join the City Alliance group. In essence, then, just summing up, we think there is no future in simply adapting to a growing threat. We must at some point address the cause. If I can use perhaps a rather crude analogy to illustrate the difference between adaptation and mitigation, it's like repeatedly having to purchase new socks because you never bother to cut your toenails. New socks are adaptation, and cutting your toenails is mitigation. And it's time we did the latter. Thank you very much.
Any questions, Mr. McTavish?
Oh, it's, okay, I'm sorry.
Can you just ask him how is that project that they submitted on last year go, the Auckland University-driven project?
How did the Auckland University-driven project go last year? Is the question from Councillor Wilson.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks, Councillor Wilson. To be honest, I'm not sure where they are. You know, the last I heard, they were planning a release to all councils, and if you guys haven't heard, then clearly it hasn't happened yet. But I'm not up to date with it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, we didn't take it up, so it may not have.
We didn't take it up, so it may not have.
Yeah. I mean, there may be better models. I'm sure it's an area of massive development, and of course, that model might suit schools or something, and other models might suit farming people. But the real principle is, you know, finding a couple of good ones and getting people going, get the conversation going, because I just feel we're all driving around and as if, you know, there's no tomorrow still.
I think probably too many of us are driving around, full stop.
Dougal, thanks very much for taking the time to initially put your submission in and also for joining us today. And thank you for keeping this in front of our minds. So thanks very much, and just keep the good work out. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck to you guys. Bye-bye.
We will now take a break.